Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 2nd September 2016. The first article is related to the rise and fall of Dilma Rousseff. Now, if you see the Workers' Party in Brazil, it has come to the power under the leadership of Lula da Silva. He is known for launching a program that is called as Bolsa Familia, which is the basis for the cash transfer scheme. And the success of this scheme has kept this party in power for continuous 13 years. And the follower of the Lula, it was Dilma Rousseff, she became the president of Brazil. But the global situation has changed once Dilma has become the president. So especially in her second term, the commodity prices have drastically fallen. The Brazil's economy is majorly dependent on the commodities it is exporting to China. So it has brought it into a negative territory of economic growth. Added to that, whenever the economic growth is decreasing and employment opportunities are being lost, in those circumstances, corruption, it will build an outburst among the people. Ms. Dilma Rousseff, she is a victim of such an outburst. So a trivial issue, that is, she did not reveal the accounts properly to the people, or to an extreme level, she did a fraud on the accounts to hide the fiscal deficit. That is what is the major charge against her. So any country, whenever there is fall in economic growth, and added to that unemployment, poverty, and high range of corruption, so these countries will take a revolutionary path. Now you take the difference between Egypt, you take the difference with Libya and the Brazil. Now, in those countries, there is a dictatorial form of the governments. That's why it led to revolution. But if you take Brazil, it is not the dictatorial form. In Brazil, it has led to the replacement of the president through a peaceful process, being the democracy. That is the major difference. Then what is the alternative to the Brazil? If you take about the present president, he also has many of the issues of corruption back to him. But he has the right-wing support. And let us see how the situation in Brazil changes and how worst it is going to become very soon. Because Mr. Temer, who is the present president, he do not enjoy the support of the masses. But he was able to become the president because there is no other alternative. Now coming to the executive and judiciary standoff. Now if you see the Chief Justice of India, he has made a comment against the executive that it is bringing the government to a standstill. So in these circumstances, what we can say? We can say that so the present situation is getting worsened, and if we do not react to it as quick as possible, it can bring in or it can change the situation much worse. So in this scenario, why the cases are pending before the judiciary? Is the executive is the reason, or the delay in the appointments is the reason? Now, for sure, delay in the judicial appointments is one of the reasons. Added to that, many other challenges. The first thing is the people with well caliber or higher caliber, they are not ready to take up the judicial positions because they are not very remunerative, or they do not have proper incentive for the people with high integrity and caliber. And the second thing is the laws or civil procedure code in India do not provide for clear directions on adjournment of the courts. So that's why adjournment is a regular procedure in Indian courts. And the third thing, the higher judiciary in India very liberally accepts appeals. So as there is a doubt on the quality of the judgments given in the lower courts, most people prefer to appeal in the higher judiciary rather than getting satisfied with the judgment of the lower courts. And finally, the judicial system. So there is India state has huge amount of litigation to itself. The state is the major litigant in the courts. So though the litigation policy was brought in by the court, but most of the times this policy is not adhered to. So these are the reasons for the growth in pending cases before the judiciary. So along with this, now if this standoff is not been done away with, the executive judicial standoff, the situation is going to further worsen. So the memorandum of procedure in the appointment of the judges, need to be clearly stated to the public. If you bring in transparency, then obviously when something in the public domain, the accountability is bound to increase. So the article suggests that the memorandum procedure has to be kept in the public. Now coming to full circle in Singur. Now if you take the Land Acquisition Act 1894, it is the most misused land law in the country. So because of this law, what has happened? The government can procure any of the land from the people. The government can procure anything and everything from the people. So in these circumstances, the government is procuring from the small and marginal farmers and giving it to the bigger corporates. And there is no social impact assessment done. And also the compensation is determined arbitrarily. Later we got the Right for Fair Compensation Land Acquisition Rehabilitation Resettlement Act. It has changed the situation now where the social impact assessment has to be done and the consent of the minimum level of the people is necessary, and finally the compensation also has to be duly paid, which is 2 times the market rate, and in rural and urban areas it shall be 4 times the market rate. Now the Singur is a classical case where the state acted as an intermediary between the small and marginal farmers and the capital groups on the other side. We can also see it in a different perspective. If the industrialization of the country has to happen, so the governments have to attract the capitalists through providing for the land and the other resources. If not, there will be no employment. That is the other dimension of the story. But if you see the Land Acquisition Act per se, so many a times it is misused in India to extract the land and other resources from the poor people. The Supreme Court judgment stating the Tatas to give away the land to the Singur farmers, so that is a reversing of the damage done under the Land Acquisition Act by the West Bengal government headed by the communists in those days. Now coming to belonging at the margins. It is about Iram Sharmila and the discrimination of the Northeast. There is a genuine question which has been put forward over here. At 12 days of fasting by Anna Hazare, it has led to the attention of the nation and the government. But if you take the 17 years of the fasting by Iram Sharmila, it did not attract the attention of this country. Or the government did not take out the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. What is the thing? So it says that in India, within the Northeast, if you observe, there is a parliamentary democracy which is functioning along with side by side with something called as militarism. So this is what is the contrast which we see in the northeastern India. And added to that, the same government took acknowledgement of the armed struggle by the Nagas rather than the peaceful struggle by the Iram Sharmila. So we can say that relatively our political sphere and the political space, it has a little observation towards the issues of the Northeast. Now, the next is Mr. Al-Sisi, the Egyptian president, he is visiting India. So, Egypt is a part of Organization of Islamic Conference. It always takes a stand against India on the Kashmir issue. Now, Mr. Sisi said he has shared his ideas in fight against terrorism along with India. He shared the India's pain because the Egypt is also going through certain phase of terrorism. He also took the hard steps against the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. So in those circumstances, he is also expecting $8.2 billion for investments for his $8.2 billion project, that is New Suez Canal. And coming to the Delhi Jal Board, so it has provided every citizen the right to water connection in New Delhi. Now, if you observe, there are many irregular colonies in the urban areas because as urban areas are fast developing, so irregular or illegitimate colonies are bound to appear. So in these circumstances, many of the civic agencies do not provide for the amenities because if the amenities are provided, they can claim the right over that land. Because of this, the major problem is the civic amenities are interrupted in between the city. For example, from X to Z, these two are legitimate colonies. In between Y is an illegitimate colony. So in those circumstances, in Y there will be no circular water, there is no water connection. But in X and Z, water connection has to be provided. So though the network is going from X to Z, so there will be no use in the area Y. So economy of scales also cannot be brought in. So in this context, right to have a water connection for all the colonies, it can provide for the basic amenities to the poor, and at the same time it also can bring in economies of scale and benefit the organizations such as Delhi Jal Board. In Bengaluru, the shared pipes are being provided for shared water connections. These actually have provided for economic revival of the Bengaluru water supply and sewerage board. So this is what is the situation we need to talk about. So these are the articles for discussion today. Thank you very much.